All right, Joe. So now we're on the members only chat. Thanks for joining me on the members only chat. Thank you so much for signing up. If you're a member, leave a comment. Let me know that you're a member. I want to connect with you. I want to talk with you. Joe, you're a financial advisor.
Yeah.
I want to start with young people.
Right.
The question young people ask in this very blunt sort of way is, how do I become rich and successful?
Right. Okay. So that's a great question. And I think you guys have got the 401k, haven't you? That's your pension. Yeah. Now,
Right.
if I was a youngster again, as soon as I possibly could, and in fact, let me reframe this, and I'll put a different slant on it. The eighth wonder of the world is compound interest, right? Because if you invest £1, right, and you get a 10% return, in a year that's £1.10. Then the next year you will get, and it'll be 10% on the pound plus the interest, and over years, right, it will go phenomenally well, right? Just mathematically, right? And you can Google the power of compound interest, and it'll give you worked examples. Now,
Sure.
the point is that, and I get it, right? That it's difficult when you're a student or you're just depending on your pocket money, right? It's difficult to save. Here's the thing, right? If you get in the habit of saving 10% of your income every week or every month or however often your paycheck comes in, right? Who was it? Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, Rob Kiyosaki?
Yeah, Kiyosaki, right.
Yeah.
It talks about pay yourself first, right? And what that means is, right, because obviously you've got your expenses, you've got your bills and everything else. If you pay yourself first, right, and that could be paying yourself with it, putting some money on deposit, that goes first. And then you build up a fund and then you can invest. Because the compound interest will make you rich. There was a calculation, and don't quote me on this. I believe that if a 16-year-old in the UK invests £100 a month, right, so that's like $140, I suppose, per month until they're 65 or something like that, their pension fund will make them a multimillionaire.
Wow.
By putting that on, and there's a few caveats on that. If the returns made are X amount % per year, and you keep making this, and inflation runs at a certain percentage, right? If they waited 5 years to start, like say 21, their investment sum at the end halves in value. So let's say 16 to 65, it's worth 2 million. When they're 21, it'll be worth 1 million. If they don't start until they're 26, it'll be worth $500,000. If they don't start till they're 31, it'll be worth 250,000. The point I'm making here, because I said to my sons, what one's a financial advisor, strangely enough, one, and he had a career change at the age of 28 because he was a quantity surveyor. Then he said, Dad, I want to do what you do. And I said, right, okay, this is what you need to do. My middle son is in cybersecurity, and my youngest son, who's 19, is just at university. And I've instilled into them, compound interest is where it's at. You need to start investing and not putting it under your bed or spending all of it having a good time. And I think you should have a good time as well. But it's about the harder you make it at the beginning, the easier it gets at the end.
Have you ever heard of the book Die with Zero? It was written by a guy named Bill Perkins.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of this concept? The concept of this book, and it might be counterintuitive to what you're talking about, but I like comparing these two philosophies, which is your earning potential over time only goes up, right? It's only going up. So if you're scraping and saving and doing all this stuff when you're 18, 19 years old, you're kind of wasting your time, because $5,000 when you're 18 might not be is a ton of money. but when you're 65,
Yeah.
that's not a lot at all.
Yeah.
So why are you scraping and to do all this stuff early on? And I think that's kind of counterintuitive to what you're saying, which is, invest early, compound interest. Now, I think Bill would probably agree that you should do both, right? You should still be investing, and then also not trying to scrape every penny to.
Right. Well, yeah, I get that concept, because to my older clients who are well-heeled, I think you say in the States, but wealthy, I say to them, there's a certain point, because my job as a financial advisor and a strategic financial planner is to identify and reduce two things, or reduce the financial threat of two things: dying too soon and living too long. Right? Dying too soon and living too long. And the reason they're a problem is because if you're a young man or woman and you've got children, a family, and you're the breadwinner, so it could be the male or female, because there's house husbands now as well as housewives. If you die when you've got young children, young family, then all the money's gone, right? So it's about taking life insurance, critical illness cover, like if you have a heart attack, cancer, stroke, or income protection. When you get old, it's about protecting your assets against inheritance tax. I don't know what they call it over in the States, but the government take a percentage of your money when you die. Like over here, it's 40%. Right.
They say death tax here.
Yeah, right, death tax. Right.
Yeah.
And then you've got long-term care planning. If you're going to go in a home, you might have to pay money, and how to do that, so you can leave the maximum to your beneficiaries without committing any crime. It's legitimate. There's legitimate tax planning. So I often say to my clients, my older clients, go skiing.
Right.
What's skiing? Spend your kids' inheritance.
What in the Die with Zero book,
Yeah.
what Bill Perkins would say is, give that stuff away while you're alive.
Yeah.
And the younger the kids are, the better, because it has a more of an impact, even if it's not as much money. That $50,000 at age 20 means a lot more to them than $500,000 at age 55.
Yeah.
Because of, when people are struggling with money in life. Anyways, it's an interesting book, and I think what you're saying is not in disagreement with that. So let me ask you kind of a fun question. What's the worst piece of financial advice you've ever heard? You're in this game of, wealth management and dealing with all this stuff. There's a lot of crap on the internet, and I can't imagine if I was focused on this full time, I would probably have 3 or 4 ringers. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
Yeah. Well, when you see all these people that seem to know everything about nothing are not regulated, right? It's unregulated. They don't care what they're saying. Whereas when I wear my financial advisor hat, by the way, the Pathfinder isn't my business as a financial advisor. But you're asking me questions as my experience. Sure. Oh, so that's quite okay. So my main aim is always to give the best advice that I possibly can. And what's the worst advice that I've heard is that there's no need to save money. There's no need to do anything. It'll all happen. You just have to come up with a great idea and you'll get it. Just go out and spend everything. That was what I heard on a show that was supposed to be qualified to be telling young people how to make money.
Well, let me tell you why I think that's awful advice. For one, if you save money, right, and let's say that idea that you just talked about still comes to you, well, guess what? Now you have money that you could put as fuel into that idea.
Yeah.
Whether that's hiring people, advertising, whatever. But if you don't save any money, you have nothing to start with.
Yeah.
And this actually is good for when I started my company. I saved up a bunch of money beforehand. I didn't know what I was going to use it for. But right when I started, I needed that money right away. And I put it to good use, and the fuel helped get things off the ground and get rolling. So that's actually good. Save your money. Save your money. Save your money. and I do agree with the, chopping off your paycheck to, 20% to yourself if you can, 25, 30%, whatever you can do to pull that money into your own pockets and keep it in your pockets.
Yeah.
That's probably the hard part for some people, is just keeping the money in your pockets. That's definitely good. What about for people that are employees, that are W-2 employees? What's their pathway to becoming rich, wealthy, successful? And I know you talked about compound interest, but aside from saving early, what's the pathway there for workers?
Well, I mean,
I have a thought if you'd like to, if I could throw it out maybe.
Well, yeah, go on. I'll just say you can have a side hustle, but what's your thought?
My thought is to double down on your current job, whatever that is. Actually grab a hold of what you're doing. So if you're working at, I don't know, I'll just say Best Buy, right? So Best Buy in the United States, I don't know if you have them in the UK, it's a pretty popular retail store. They sell all the electronics and gadgets and stuff like that. Let's say you're working at Best Buy and you're a floor salesperson or whatever. You might not see that path. And this goes for a lot of people. You might not see that path to becoming rich and successful. However, what if you were the best sales floor guy in all of Best Buy?
Yeah.
What would that look like to you? How would that change the direction of your life? And I think you can apply that same logic to any job. I don't care. Fast food workers, sanitation workers, I don't care what it is. If you became the best person at that job in that field, I believe that's the pathway. But let me know your thoughts on that.
Well, that's that's a great point, actually. And you'll remember before, during my story, I talked about, I found out when patients were declining on going to training, right? So I wanted to be the best I could be and speed up my recovery. And in the context of what you've just said about being your best self, right? I know when I started in sales many years ago, before I became a financial advisor, I mean, I'm green, I'm wet behind the ears. I don't know much about sales, and my closing rate wasn't great, right? So, but there was someone who was really good, and what I discovered, I just said, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to do more than you. He said, you can't do. Your closing ratio is like you have to have 10 appointments to get one deal or one appointment, and then you have to do so many appointments to get one sale. I said, yeah, I'm still going to beat you. He said, well, how can you? He says, because I just have 5 appointments. I get 2, make 5 appointments, keep 2, and sell 1. I said, I'm just going to do more.
Right.
And I did beat him. I mean, I worked like a dog. But because I committed to doing that, I beat him. And that's probably along the same lines as what you're saying. Just be the best you can be and discover. If you're walking on a shop floor, there's nothing to say you cannot go up the ranks and get promoted and be in charge of the whole place after a while. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. So once people have started their journey, their success journey, their wealth journey, and they have some money, right? They have money, or they've reached a certain goal where they're at. How do you recommend people? I don't want to say change their life, because you probably won't say that they're going to change their life. But how would you recommend? Let me ask this a different way. What would be some investments into your life that could actually improve your life for the better for people that do have a few bucks?
Well, first of all, be clear on what you want, because you've probably heard the saying, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. So identify the goal that you want, whether that be financial or experiential. Set a time when you want to achieve it by, and then set up a plan based on certain criteria. Whether that's if I make an assumption that I'm going to get the return of this each year, this is what. And there's lots of cash modeling tools around now. And if you, I'm sure in America, United States, if you get yourself a good financial advisor, they should have some form of cash flow modeling tool which will identify certain criteria on investments to say this is how much you'll have at this specific time. Like when I'm planning with people, depending on what their age is, we might be doing some planning for school fee planning, or for a cruise, or for a semi-retirement lump sum, or for something, a goal that they particularly want, if that makes sense. So it's about setting a clear goal, the timeline when you want to achieve it. And by the way, also deciding what you're willing to accept if that isn't achieved. And it might be, no, I want to achieve that, and that's everything. It's hell or high water, I'm going for that, and that's okay. Or you can say, well, if I'm not that, I'm happy with this. Because you might decide that you finish the goal timeline of 5 years at 3 years, because you've got enough to achieve the one that you wanted. The other one was like the dream. Does that make sense? Has that helped? Has that answered the question, sort of?
Yeah, no, that answers the question. Absolutely, you got it. So, Joe, no, I appreciate you dropping some advice for us. I want to leave with maybe the last question on what would be the number one piece of advice we talked about in the podcast about your journey through these traumatic situations. You call them incidents that occurred where you were almost killed multiple times, and you could have easily, given up on life, thrown in the towel and said, forget this. Through all of your experience, through your life, what would be the thing that you want to be remembered for? What's that advice that you would give to people out there?
And by the way, there were some times when I did feel like ending it. So I'm not invincible. I'm a human being just like you. I'm no different. I'm just Joe. The one thing that Winston Churchill said this once, and it's a famous saying, and it's not that we'll fight them on the beaches, we'll fight them. It's not that one. It's this. When you're going through tough times, keep going. And that sums it up for me. So when you're going through tough times, keep going until you get to the other side. Because whether you break up in a relationship with your partner, your wife, your boyfriend, your husband, girlfriend, whether you go bust in business, whether you get fired from a job, whether you get an exam result that wasn't what you wanted, you got a big fat Freddy and a fail instead of a pass, right? Or you didn't get A star, you just got something lower. Time is a great healer. So on the day that it happens, and please that you never experience an incident like I did, everyone's got the mountain to climb though. And everyone falls off the mountain because that's life. And when you fall off that mountain and you're at the bottom in the valley, get up, push yourself down and keep going. Because whenever you're going through tough times, just keep going until you come out the other side.
Awesome, Joe. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. Definitely check out in the description. I'll put all links to Joe's stuff. Later, y'all.